Hey guys, so this is the first of its kind. Are you ready for this? I missed a lot of my reviews last week. I had some craziness happening in my life, but there's so many shows that came on last week that I still want to talk about, and so I'm going to do that in this video. So basically, I'm going to give you my thoughts in 1 minute on 4 different shows. Here we go. Okay, so let's talk about last week's episode of Scandal. Lisa Kudrow, so that was kind of cool. I've been waiting for her to make an appearance. I think my favorite scene this week was the scene between Quinn and Huck towards the end of the episode when he tells her, "You're not worried, you're interested." And I just loved it. There was such great tension and passion, and it was awesome. I loved that we're starting to learn a little bit about Operation Remington, and the whole idea of Huck and Jake joining forces was really, really interesting. Jake is winning me over, you guys. I mean, I'm all down for Olitz. And I'm not quite sure that I trust Jake yet, but I was feeling him in this episode. Sorry. And of course, the case this week was about a senator in a sex scandal. I mean, it was basically Anthony Weiner, but just with a different name. And he was on trial for murder. I loved the twist at the end. I figured it out like 2 seconds before she said it, that the wife was the one who killed the girl. And I thought that was genius. It was a good episode, you know, nothing earth-shattering, but it was good. Okay, moving right along, let's talk about this week's episode of The Vampire Diaries. You guys, I do not want to Bonnie rant again, but I'm going to. Are you ready? Here we go. First of all, it was so sad, this episode was, right? I cried like a freaking baby at the end when they did the whole funeral thing and everyone was crying and Bonnie was telling everyone, you know, like through Jeremy, all the things that she wants to say to them. It was super, super sad. Let me tell you the part that I really hated. The part where Jeremy's going around telling people that Bonnie's dead and he tells Damon, and the first thing that Damon thinks about is how it's going to affect Elena. Drives me insane because once again it proves that no one really cares about Bonnie. You know, that Bonnie's basically there to take care of Elena. And so for Damon it was, don't make me tell Elena that. Really? How about the fact that Bonnie's dead? Let's mourn that. And really, if you think about it, I mean, Bonnie's been dead all summer long and nobody's gonna look for her? Really? That's the kind of friend we are, people? I got a problem with that. Elena really kind of annoyed me in this episode also because as she's trying to get Stefan to remember, right? Because remember, we're doing the whole amnesia storyline. She feels the need to take him to all of the places that are important to them as a couple. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Really, Stefan did the thing in the end that I always wish that he would have done anyway, which is leave. If I'm in that situation with someone and my ex is shagging up with my brother or sister, I'm out, you know? And so when he left, I was just like, good for you, Stefan, good for you. I loved seeing the relationship grow between Stefan and Caroline, who I also like to call Lexi Jr. Loving that Jesse's still around because he's a cutie patootie. Although, I mean, we get now that he's going to be a vampire, so that should be interesting. Also, Tyler came back and I didn't care. Sorry. Let's talk about last week's episode of Rain. This was the 2nd episode. You guys, I am really, really loving this show. So you people need to watch it because if it gets canceled, I'm going to be really, really upset. So basically, these English dudes show up to the court and the English and the Scottish are not on such good terms. And so Mary just basically feels threatened all around her, especially as she starts to realize that Colin's not dead. And she really is starting to believe that there's somebody there at the court who's also trying to like take her out. There's an English guy visiting the court named Simon who's just all kinds of rude to her. And she and Frances kind of have to fake their happy, you know, gonna be married bliss in front of this guy so that he'll leave Mary alone. Also, the love triangle is continuing to grow between Frances and Sebastian, who I love, and Mary. So the Queen is torturing poor Colin, but he manages to escape, which is bad for the Queen, of course, because if anyone finds out that she's the one behind the whole attack on Mary from the first episode, that would be a problem. By the end of the episode, Colin is dead, which was kind of sad, but Mary knows that it was the Queen, and she conveys that feeling to Frances, who goes to his mother, and within a couple of minutes realizes, oh my gosh, she was right, you did it. But of course, he doesn't get the reason why. He doesn't get that Nostradamus has prophesied that Mary is going to cause his death, and that's why his mother is trying to get rid of her. Yeah, you guys, I'm loving this show. Lots of intrigue and backstabbing and all kinds of craziness going on. If you haven't watched it, this was only the 2nd episode, and you should totally catch up. Trust me, people. Trust me. Okay, let's talk about last week's episode of The Originals. You guys, this show has been so good. Rebecca's on the hunt for Elijah. She remembers some of the details about the room that she saw him in, and she eventually tracks him down at a church. But when she gets to the room, Elijah kind of enters her mind and has a conversation with her and tells her to leave him. Davina has pulled the dagger out, not realizing that that's going to wake him up, and he really kind of wants to try to form an alliance with her. And we know how good Elijah is at that. I can't wait for him to wake up because I love him so much. Davina gets to leave her room, which is a big thing, right? I loved that whole show of power at the beginning where Marcus tells her, no, you can't go to the music festival. And then she's like, hey, I'm gonna make your blood boil. And then he's like, okay, you can go. We get in the end that she's really there for a boy. And then Klaus has this whole plan that he's doing where he wants to make contact with her during the music festival. He really plants a lot of doubts in her mind about Marcus, you know, like, why won't he let you leave your room? He doesn't trust you, blah, blah, blah. He's just using you. But in reality, we know that Klaus wants to do the same thing to her. Haley almost gets killed by one of the witches who takes her out to see some doctor out in the bayou. But she manages to survive, and we get that she was probably saved by some wolves. We know she's got that weird kind of like tattoo on the back of her shoulder. And remember, she was like an orphan, so she doesn't know who her real family is. So I'm sensing that that is coming in the storyline. Let's talk about Cammy for a hot second because she was in this episode. We get that the church where Davina is staying at, there was a massacre at this church like years ago. And it turns out that Cammy's brother was the priest who like slaughtered all these other priests. And she's there in New Orleans really to try to figure out why that is. So that was an interesting storyline that I was not expecting. Eventually, Klaus compels her to forget that. For now, I'm sensing, because he really wants her focused on spying. I find it really interesting, right, that he can compel her, but whenever he's in her presence, she remembers everything. So I'm not sure why that is, because I don't think we've ever seen that happen before with compulsion, especially like on the Vampire Diaries, we haven't. So I'm not sure if Klaus is allowing her to do that or what that's all about. So that's it, you guys. Those are my quick recaps for the shows that I missed this week. Hopefully that will not be happening anymore. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Bye.